Magazine covers still do actually mean something to the public, but I would say especially to the subjects. You know, being asked to be on the cover is something that print and print alone can really deliver in that unique way. We have gone from a regular monthly magazine to now a quarterly magazine. And so when you do that, you better make sure that your quarterly version has a reason to exist that is different from your website, your events, your podcast network, recognition programs. So every piece had to have a different and very, really clearly defined purpose in like the broader puzzle.
Can you give us a sense of sort of the pie chart of Fast Company's revenue?
Our ratio is still not like some of the big scale players in media who have like almost completely flipped that to more of like an 80-20 consumer to advertising. We're not there. We still care about advertising. We care about traffic. We care about audience size, but we are definitely increasingly focused on.
We do have to talk about lists because Fast Company has incredible lists.
I was pleasantly but totally shocked when I came in and saw how much work goes into these lists. And yes, we do charge for the applications, but that's because it takes massive amounts of our team's time to properly vet them. And we are very conscious of not getting known as pay for play.
AI, what thrills you, what terrifies you?
A lot of things about it terrify me. I think
Hey everybody. Good to be back up here. Brendan Vaughan, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. I want to start in 2022 when you joined Fast Company as editor-in-chief. You had a long media career across a lot of different outlets, a stint in publishing, across Condé Nast publications, Business Insider, The Atlantic. When you arrived at Fast Company, what did you see? What did you see in terms of strengths, in terms of areas that you wanted to improve? What were your priorities at the time?
Thanks for having me. This is it's great to be here. Thanks everybody for coming. Really appreciate you all being here. I had been working at Business Insider for only 6 months when that happened, and actually The Atlantic only 6 months. I have these great brands on my CV, and should I have an asterisk here? 6 months, 6 months. There was reasons for that. The reason for Business Insider was that I was really loving working there, and I got a call from, I wasn't looking to change. I'd been there 6 months, and it was going well, and I got a call from Stephanie Meadow, who's now our CEO, my predecessor as EIC of Fast Company, and she asked me if I was interested, and I was. I mean, I definitely had to kind of, it was weird to be somewhere 6 months, especially after I had been at The Atlantic, which was somebody on parental leave, kind of a between jobs fill-in thing. So I was a little nervous about the 2 6-month back-to-back stints in a row, but it was just such a great opportunity. Fast Company was a magazine that actually first broke onto the scene very early in my career, and it was this incredibly inspirational thing for me because it just immediately was enormously influential. Like it just overnight was a massive success. The timing was just absolutely perfect. Captured the rise of the first internet era. The post-NASDAQ bubble popping was even faster than the rise. I mean, it hit hard times in 2000, 2001 after when everyone did who was covering that space. But the magazine just always had this incredible mix of business and culture. It was about business, creativity, innovation, leadership, all things that I find very interesting. But it also just very much was situated in in the broader culture and always related to the way that business shapes culture and society and the world, and the way that innovation in all of its forms can have this impact that goes well beyond what we think of traditionally as the business world. And I also knew that the reader really knew what Fast Company was, and to be able to come into a job with that huge advantage where like this brand already has incredible affection from its audience was just a really attractive thing to be able to build on.
In terms of anything that you saw so what I mean is there's been a redesign recently. You've launched, I think, a couple new franchises probably. When you arrived in 2022, was any of that apparent? Like, I want to make sure that we do this franchise. I think we're up for a redesign. I think there are a couple of things that can really help to deepen what Fast Company is about and make it a better version of itself.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting because some of that, there's a bunch of different answers and a bunch of different reasons for some of what you mentioned. I mean, on the redesign of the print, we've redesigned our homepage. That was in the last year, and the rest of our site. That was just we're a design-forward brand, and we need to freshen this thing up. It's been too long. Like we have to, when you write about innovation, when you're an authority in the design world, like you need to walk the walk, or those people will not think you know what you're talking about. So that was just this site has looked this way for too long thing, and we also wanted to just bring up a lot of sort of like table stakes features and things like that we had fallen like slightly behind on. So on like the print side, I'll just answer that part. Like we have gone from a regular monthly magazine to now a quarterly magazine, and so when you do that, you better make sure that your quarterly version has a reason to exist that is different from your website, your events, your podcast network, your recognition programs, your community, your CEO council and community. So every piece had to have a different and very really clearly defined purpose in like the broader puzzle. We have a nice advantage at Fast. We have challenges at Fast Company. We're in the media business in 2025. We have a lot of challenges. We are not a huge brand, for example. So one of the things that we really need to do is to have a lot of irons in the fire and diversified revenue streams with, like I was saying, clear purposes for each thing. So the print magazine was like, this feels not like it is the lean back experience that you would want to have if you got this 4 times a year and you want to read something that you can't find online because it is 30,000 feet and really kind of like makes connections that maybe you're not making in your daily coverage because everything's just going so fast, that sort of pullback perspective. So we really try to do that in print. So I'll stop there because there are more facets to that answer, but like the print magazine redesign was really based on that.
Yeah, I actually do want to talk about print for a little bit because I think a lot of people in here probably, I'm personally a fan of print, but I understand that it's anachronistic at this point. Like I get why people might not be psyched to pick up a physical magazine and why it may not make business sense. But I also get some sense that there is a business advantage to having that physical artifact in terms of being a publication like Fast Company. And so I'd like to hear how you all think about how having a magazine 4 times a year adds to the brand, attracts readers, or allows you to do things that you may not be able to do otherwise, without it.
Yeah, I mean, last fall, for our fall issue, we were actually 5 times a year. This is the first year we're quarterly. Last fall, we did a split cover, 10 covers for our fall issue. And that was because we wanted to do a thing at our Fast Company Innovation Festival, which is our flagship event every fall in New York City. To really make that special, it was our 10th anniversary of the festival. We said, let's name the 10 most innovative people of the last 10 years. And to make that attractive for them, I mean, it's attractive to be called that helps. But we offered a magazine cover, an onstage interview at the Innovation Festival, a video with a walk-on video. So the print piece of that was a significant thing. Magazine covers still do actually mean something to the public, but I would say especially to the subjects. Being asked to be on the cover is something that print and print alone can really deliver in that unique way. So yeah, that was a big reason that we do print. It's also, we do 6 recognition programs that many of you, I hope, have heard of. Most Innovative Companies, Brands That Matter, Best Workplaces for Innovators, 3 others. And the honorees of those programs, they want to be in the magazine. Like, winning is nice, but being in print, it's not ephemeral like a web page. It actually has that kind of thing. And the funny thing about that always cracks me up is that the most advanced tech companies in the world, who, by the way, are helping to kill our little print magazine, really care so much. I'm half serious about that, but they really do care about being in the magazine, and so it has value to us to continue to publish. In another way, it's also just a really beautiful object. It's just a beautiful expression of what we are at our best, and how, when you get a team of people together to make something, I'll say permanent, semi-permanent, like a magazine is. Hopefully you keep it, put it on your shelf. It still does matter, even as the business rationale is certainly not what it was.
But essentially, it still has cachet, and meaningful cachet with sources and subjects. So that's something. I do want to talk about the business in general, because at one point, I suspect Fast Company, like a lot of other monthly, biweekly magazines, it was pretty clear what the business model was. It was subscriptions and it was advertisers, and then some of that moved into the digital realm. And I'm sure that's still a big part of the mix, but I imagine, like a lot of other publications, there's an event piece, there's some brand work, content work, there's podcasts. Can you give us a sense of sort of the pie chart of Fast Company's revenue?
Yeah, I mean, we're just over 50% is still advertising and sponsorship. So that is increasingly kind of bespoke advertising and marketing partnerships with companies, as opposed to, CPM, digital direct type stuff. So that's a little over half. Consumer revenue is about a third. That includes subscriptions to our, digital product, print magazine, different combinations thereof of those things. It includes all of the revenue from our application programs, the awards programs I was just talking about. We also do licensing, syndication, so foreign edition licensing. We have a handful of foreign editions, as well as logo licensing for the awards programs that we do, which is a piece of our revenue as well. So, it's changed. I mean, not long ago, that piece that was advertising was much bigger. That piece that was consumer was much less. Our ratio is still not like some of the big scale players in media who have like almost completely flipped that to more of like an 80-20 consumer to advertising. We're not there. We still care about advertising. We care about traffic. We care about audience size. But we are definitely focused more right now. I say more right now. We are increasingly focused on that consumer piece and just continuing to build really, really solid long-term relationships with our audience, which we do have the foundation for that. We have a lot of those relationships already. But when you look at AI proofing your business, which is impossible to do, by the way, but you can do it as best you can. That community and those relationships are just so important to our future.
Yeah, so basically the path to growth as you see it is expanding the subscription piece of that pie chart. I
mean, events too, events. I would subscriptions are a huge part of what we're trying to do and a huge part of what we see in our future. We need a sizable funnel to get those subscriptions in there. So you're still trying to create, audiences that you can sell advertising against. But we want to convert as many of those readers as possible. And then, through that first kind of like traffic funnel that leads to a marketing funnel, you'd be able to make those audiences aware of all the great events we do, all the great programs that you can apply to. If you're a CEO or a chief design officer or a chief innovation officer, join the Fast Company Impact Council, which is a more expensive, members-only, executive council organization that we're increasingly interested in building up, and we've doubled in size in the last couple of years.
What is an ideal Fast Company story in your view? When you fire up the homepage, what do you want to see from your writers, and what do you not want to see?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like the platonic ideal Fast Company, like sort of quick digital story is a kind of holy shit, never thought of that headline that is about some innovation, some business innovation. That is a very sort of classic Fast Company story, like, there's a new paint on the roads in LA and this paint absorbs X amount of energy and cools down the air, whatever, stuff like that.
And it's from microalgae or something.
Like that. And those stories can do really well. There is there's a weird thing that kind of Fast Company has had to deal with. This isn't even something that like we talk about around the office. It's just something that I've noticed, which is that years ago when things weren't as obviously measured by how many people clicked on the story, you could deliver news to your audience about some company that no one's ever heard of, some technology that no one's ever heard of, just some idea that is literally just the kernel in someone's brain, and maybe it'll become something someday, maybe it won't. and fulfill, in a sense, Fast Company's editorial mission of like reporting on innovation and being first to talk about stuff that down the line might become a household name. That is easier to do in a world where it's not measured by clicks. Because if you don't know what it is and you've never heard of it, I mean, you write an amazing headline, you can still get the audience, but if the headline is so-so, then this amazing thing is just gonna go unread and undiscovered by the public. So nowadays, our site needs to have a combination of that pure innovation journalism where we are the first to tell you about something and stuff that people are very, very familiar with and are already talking about every other place online at that moment. So we have to have that combination of that new stuff and that internet conversation that if you don't do, you really don't have much of a chance.
I get it. So kind of not lure them in, but get them in the mix via topics that you know folks are going to be interested in and readily understand. And then they see a headline and they go, oh, I want to know about that microalgae on the roads or whatever. And yeah, I'm going to read about it. We do have to talk about lists because Fast Company has incredible lists. And I would love to understand the process behind some of those, if you're going to do any others that we don't know about, and just sort of the thinking in terms of those franchises and how they've evolved.
So I'll answer the second part first. We do have a new list that actually just launched last fall. It's called Ignition Schools. We launched it very quietly. It is for colleges and mostly universities because they need to be, for the most part, research universities. And the program measures the economic impact of universities on the entrepreneurial and innovation-like ecosystem of their communities, not just their immediate communities. It can be their alumni networks, like their, the networks in which they operate in the world when the ideas that are sort of developed in an academic environment then get commercialized out into the world. So like measuring which schools are best at that. So that's a program that we are adding. That's a joint program between Inc. and Fast Company, which is the only one of our programs that is done with both brands. And so that is like our 6.5 program, or their 6.5. So we each have 6 core, and then that one. So. The lists are a huge part of our business. They are incredibly rigorously, I was pleasantly, but totally shocked when I came in and saw how much work goes into these lists. And yes, we do charge for the applications, but that's because it takes massive amounts of our team's time to properly vet them. And we are very conscious of not getting known as pay for play. And so we really make sure that in our methodology and our reporting about the list that you can find on our site, we're very clear about how we do it. So some of them, Most Innovative Companies, which is the flagship, that's a year-round project that involves constant research. The others have windows of time that are a bit narrower, but that are still like really vigorously researched and vetted and judged by only our editors do it. So a couple of them have like sort of guest extra judges that are like a final layer, but most of it is all done in-house.
When I see David Linsky a couple weeks before Most Innovative Companies, I can tell a lot of work goes into it. I can tell somebody's putting in real hours.
So David Linsky, who JJ is talking about, is somebody that worked at Fast Company for 20 years. He was and is kind of Fast Company. He's just this sort of spirit animal of the whole place. And he's a brilliant guy and an incredibly hard worker. But you don't want to go too close to him in the 10 days or so before Most Innovative Companies comes out. And I am so thrilled, if anybody didn't see on the sort of business news job sites and whatnot, David returned to Fast Company. So he went away for a little over a year, learned a ton at another place that he went. Very cool experience, but kind of missed us and we missed him, so he's coming back.
Yeah.
He's back.
That's great news. You mentioned Inc. I've been to your offices, not in the last year, but you basically share a floor, last I remembered. What is the cross-pollination between Inc. and Fast Company in terms of, you mentioned that list, which I was not aware of, in terms of that kind of joint effort. Is there any other sort of, I don't know, information sharing, journalistic resource sharing? Because you have, for folks who don't know, a shared owner as well.
Yeah, so our owner is Joe Mansueto. He founded Morningstar, and he has been our owner since 2005. I would say that I just completely lost my train of thought. It happens. It's the end of the day.
I can vamp. I'll do my quick five.
Yeah. Give me the quick reminder.
Mansueto,
Yeah.
cross-pollination.
So not
ink.
a lot, not a
Yeah,
lot.
okay.
So Inc., where we cross-pollinate is in our shared functions. So we have the same marketing department, we have the same events department. We do learn a lot from each other, and like when something works really well on the Inc. side for that, we will apply it to the Fast Company side. The editorial departments are fairly different. There's still some. I mean, our former digital director at Fast Company is the editor-in-chief of Inc. now. So, and his name is Mike Hoffman. He worked at Inc. a long time ago, then went and did some other things, came to Fast Company, ran our digital for a while, and then was promoted into the top job at Inc. So there's cross-pollination there. It's the same person that is very familiar with both brands. But they are really for small business, medium business, entrepreneurs. We are more for startup culture, people that work at big, fast company-ish companies like Nike and Patagonia and Google and all the companies that we cover all the time. So while there's shared learnings, they tend to be more in the business building side of it than the editorial side of it. But the Ignition Schools program that I just mentioned is an example of editorial collaboration that I'm really excited about.
Awesome. Last question. AI. What thrills you? What terrifies you?
I mean, it mostly thrills me. I mean, a lot of things about it terrify me. I think, the obvious one being like how much of all sort of answers are just going to be satisfied on the site, Google, Perplexity, whatever you're using, and no one's going to have to go to publishers. That's the main, and I share that fear with every single person in my industry, so not exactly an interesting answer, but it's still the main fear. I'm also afraid of the lack of, I'm pro-technology, and I believe AI will, generally speaking, make the world a better place, but I do think that it's a global arms race to sort of get there being AGI or whatever we want to call it first and dominate the business. So every country is racing to be the country that dominates that. The US is in a really, really good position, but lots of other countries are too and are there. And it's like, I feel like that is being used as an excuse to just sort of shrug at any kind of regulatory framework for it. Like if it's sort of like the Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa home run race. It's like, well, they're doing it, and if I don't do it, I'm going to lose. So but if the thing is not so great, then maybe don't do it anyway, or at least regulate, have some kind of regulatory framework that keeps us from making some of the massive mistakes that we made with social media, for example, and unintended consequences of that. I mean, there's just a lot of risk there. And because it is a business race and a national race, a lot of that is just being not ignored. It's not hard to find articles about it, like it's out there, but it just doesn't feel like it's being taken seriously enough to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brendan Vaughan, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.